Diamonds on my wrist when I step up on a diamond, 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 diamonds on my wrist when I step up on
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. The Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, to break down 3 industry articles for you guys every single day to provide reality for you, education and insight on how to navigate through any freight market out there. So again, Dr. Rhonda, what's up? Good morning. Thank you guys all for coming out again. Again, we are live every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Central. And the audio-only replay of this is available on the podcast later on today, as well as the video is over on my YouTube channel. Check it out, subscribe, and share as always. And also, the show is brought to you by my friends over at VHub. You guys, asset reallocation, trailers, we need them, right? Brokers, carriers alike, you need access to trailers to get out there. So with what we got going on right now, we got some new trailers in the pool. We got the ones in Chicago heading up to the Toronto area, as well as Montreal and Western Canada. And again, they got some reloads coming out there down to the Dallas area. So again, you bring that power only up there, drop and hook, grab another empty trailer, get it loaded, come back down to Texas. And as you can see, you get paid to reposition these, you guys. That's what it's all about. Help offset some of that skyrocketing fuel costs that are out there. And then they also have some reefer trailers available out in Monroe Township, New Jersey, looking to get up into Milton, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. And again, you get paid for it. And they have those same reefers heading back down to Hutchinson, Texas, that you can send with it. And then they have the one-way repositions heading up from the Salt Lake City and the Glade Spring, Virginia area into Western Canada. So again, you guys check him out. Hit up my man, Xavier Campos. He is going to be in the audience. As always, he's there to answer any questions you guys might have. Got a very special guest for you guys today. We're here to talk about reality, you guys. We're here to talk about data. We're here to talk about insight that you can actually use. So I got my friends with DAT, Mr. Ken Adamo here today. So Ken, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. Outside of the Ohio State shirt he's rocking, we were going back and forth at the beginning because I'm a Wisconsin Badgers guy. So,
my condolences. Was it 59-0 that one Big Ten championship?
That's where we're going.
Or was it 65 or nothing? I can't remember. It's a lot too little.
Yeah, we do really good to show up at games that don't matter. It's only when it matters that we're having a hard time. Otto, good morning, sir. Sunny, Orange Shirt Gang, we are in the house. Ken, what's good? What's new? Before we jump into everything else, man, what's going on out there from your guys' perspectives?
I mean, it's been an interesting spring so far, hasn't it? Right? In the freight markets?
Yes.
We've seen some correction back to reality. We've seen flatbeds continue to do pretty well. Road check week is kind of flatten things out a bit, right? I think a much needed reprieve. But if I had to kind of gloss over all that, big story's been fuel. I think we all know, anyone who's close to this game knows that 72 to 75 cent a mile fuel surcharges, that dominates the conversation.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, speaking of fuel, it's also, we go with the price of gold. So I do my daily fuel report out there right now. And it's at $5.53 a gallon nationwide, is the average. Dedicated trucking, I'm assuming that's a middle finger out there, behind $6.25 a gallon is what he saw out in his area. But again, you guys, it's up $2.30 year over year. So as Ken's talking about right there, that fuel surcharge, price accordingly. All right, we can't control this right now, but what we can control is how we position ourselves to continue to win freight out there, breaking it out, that fuel surcharge, and having that be a pass-through expense in every instance that we possibly can get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had our a big customer event a couple of weeks ago, mainly brokerage facing, and just a lot of great discussions around fuel surcharge. Because I mean, as we've seen shifts, brokers have picked up a lot of contract freight over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
that's going to be really good for their businesses. It's really good for the spot market too, because as we know, a huge percentage of that contract freight ends up on the spot market on the buy side. So they're getting more familiar with operating with fuel surcharges as it pertains to their shipper. And in a lot of cases, it might make a lot of sense to at least have internal fuel guidance when it comes to negotiating on the carrier side as well.
No, absolutely. And I think that it's got to shift your perspective in these markets. It's not just here's an all-in rate, or here, we'll take this. Let's only play on the spot market. Because time and time again, you guys, the spot market proves to be volatile. All right. It always is. Even in a good market, it can be volatile because again, like that's like the problem with my opinion about putting like a blanket statement out there, like, oh, rejections are at this and the national average is at this, but that doesn't tell the whole story because there's pockets of the industry, there's segments of the market that aren't necessarily $2 a mile right now. So again, it's like really digging in on a lane by lane basis because like that surface level statement at times is only beneficial to larger enterprise carriers who aren't even really on the spot market. And the same with the brokers, like you're talking about. The real bigger brokers out there have contracts. Like that's all that they roll with. They don't, So yeah, sorry, go. You got something there?
No, we operate like this three-sided, not just DAT. Like we're all players in this sort of three-sided piece, which you have shippers, brokers, and carriers. And if you go to a shipper right now and you say we're in the middle of a freight recession, they're going to look at you like you are crazy. They're paying as much for freight as they've ever paid in the history, at least since deregulation. Right? They are paying because they face the full brunt of the fuel surcharge. 85% of their freight, on average, depending on the shipper, is contract. So they're paying all-time high contract rates. They're not seeing a ton of relief on the spot market. Yes, it's down, but it's still way over where it was in 2019, for example.
Yeah,
and they're paying, on average, 70 to 75 cents a mile fuel surcharge, whereas before they were paying 35 cents a mile fuel surcharge. So saying that the market has cratered and, we're in bread lines doesn't make any sense to a shipper.
Yeah,
it does to a small carrier. And I think you and I are both equally sympathetic to what it means to be a small carrier right now.
Yeah.
So I do think, to your point, context is crucially important when we're talking about these issues.
No, absolutely. But that's the thing is it's like those small carriers that are out there. This is the time that you go and get that dedicated freight. You don't necessarily rely on a broker. You literally just drive around to shippers right now, like legitimately get in your vehicle and drive into shippers. They will take your capacity. Like I've never met a shipper who, when I've called in my career, who said, "Oh, you have trailers and trucks? Yeah, we don't want to work with you." It's So again, it's like when you're out there, like there are customers who don't put their information out there. Okay, like let's call it what it is. There are shippers in small area secondary. I call them the secondary cities. Ken, they're not in the Houston, Texases, or the Chicago, Illinois of the world. They're like 100 miles outside of those cities. They're shipping freight out of those freight markets. So again, they're going to be more likely to set up that 10 truck operation with them than going into Kraft Heinz, because unfortunately the reality is with a lot of these enterprise shippers, a lot of the data that you can kind of see out there, that is for large enterprise shippers. And no, they won't work with a 5-truck operation because they move 500 loads a day out of one facility. It's like that's just the reality of how this market operates. But that doesn't say that you can't get in there with those direct relationships with customers. And then they're gonna want to work with you because they might have 10 loads a week. And you know what? They ship 5 on Tuesday and 5 on Thursday. And then the way that you can round trip it and set up and get that direct customer freight coming back as well. Again, like this isn't easy, but these are the conversations that I would like to see some of these smaller carriers do, is get in the door with a lot of these direct relationships.
Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think you're managing a lot of different things, right? You're managing P and Q as a carrier. You're managing the volume of miles largely, right? But I think about it as shipments because it's easier to think about. So I need to make sure that my wheels are turning, and my overall weekly, monthly rate per mile is at a profitable level. Not every shipment's going to be a home run. Not every shipment's going to be a loss, right? But I just need to make sure that I'm actively managing it. So I think it's what you're talking about. But again, I'm not in sales, furthest thing from it, I think. But we still have, I think this is the 5th week in a row we've had over 1 million dry van load posts still on our load board. I think last week was like 1.5 or 1.7.
Yeah.
That I should know the answer to. But it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So there's still a lot of freight. And again, it's not all paying the national average, right? If you look at any distribution, right, there's people paying more, there's people paying less. The stuff coming out of Southern California, produce excluded, it's going to be a lot cheaper than the stuff going in. So there's a lot of money to be made out there still. It's
absolutely. And that was that was kind of my thing the whole time, Ken, is it was like, I think everybody would have been singing a different tune. Well, not everybody, but the conversations that we've had would be a different tune if overall freight volumes weren't still high. It's a big difference. There's a big difference out there. And that's the thing, is it's like where you're talking about in your backyard, that doesn't necessarily mean, because the national average says $2.04, whatever the fuck that number is, that does not mean that that's what it's going to be paying in your backyard. All right, just take that into consideration.
Even on a lane, right? I have the pleasure of working with some very talented analysts, and one of them is Dr. Chris Kaplis, who's up at MIT, who's on our staff part-time. And he has this chart that he shows students that I think is just telling of, like, even if you take a super heavily trafficked lane, there is no rate from Chicago to Atlanta.
Correct.
There is a healthy distribution of has and non-has, short and long lead time, heavy and light, partials and fulls, and all of these different things that make up, a pretty, it's actually not a normal distribution. It's kind of more of like a log normal distribution, tilting a little bit to the left, right? Yeah. Most of the freight moves a little bit less than the average, and then you have some of the real high expensive ones that drag the skew a little bit that way. But yeah, there's just a ton of diversity. And then, again, I think it's difficult to back yourself into the corner with some of these broad statements. It's the whole market's crashing. Well, it's not crashing for everyone. It's not crashing for large carriers. It's only crashing for small carriers. And then, it's not crashing for all small carriers. It's crashing for this subset.
Yes.
I just think you and I have had this conversation offline, which is there's ways to succeed in up and down markets for all participants.
Yes, and, absolutely. Like that,
right?
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. There's a way to navigate through any of this stuff, plain and simple. And that's the only way you got to look at it, is there is a solution out there. And that's the only thing you need to focus on. And again, that's the entire premise of this show, is providing insight for people to actually utilize in there and see a difference in their business. I got to get some shout outs out there. Good morning, Samantha Bass. Good morning, Bree, Rick Wooten, Andrew Teal, Matt Laird. Good morning, Maggie. I'm not even going to finish that statement. It looks like you said, oh, so I'm just, okay. That's what we're okay. Here we go. Andrew Teal says sometimes the way to get into a larger shipper in a location that's good for you, get in with their customer. Sometimes the shipper and customer have a chance. Yep, absolutely. That's another great way about that. We're also at day 39 of the Freight Coach Tally. This is about there being a trucking issue and a facilities issue for drivers out there in the industry. And again, I will continue to talk about this stuff every single day until drivers stop sending me pictures of facilities that say driver can't use bathroom and driver can't leave facility, or they're back to the end of the line and now we're working status and everything else. So again, that's like the metrics that I'm going off of. As soon as that stuff gets taken care of, then we will stop talking about it. But again, I don't do this for vanity metrics. I don't do this to drive activity outside of, I want my activity and my engagement to be solely education based on this show. Steve Ferreira, what's up, man? Good morning. LinkedIn user, good morning. I'm going with it's either Todd Waldron or Matt Fink, because for some reason it just doesn't show up with you guys. Matt Laird has a question for you, Ken. What is the input for DAT rate view? Is it from factoring or shipper/broker submitted pricing?
So 100% of the rate view data comes in through direct submissions from shippers, brokers, and carriers. So we have about 1,200 companies that contribute. It's about 50 million in growing records per year. Again, it comes in, it's cleaned, it's scrubbed, it's verified. Most of it comes through TMSs, as you could probably imagine. It comes in every night. I don't know if that makes it high frequency or low frequency. I would guess high. But it comes in every night. I think it's like, at this point, $500 million every single day worth of paid freight bills comes in. Some of that freight may be factored, but none of it comes from factoring companies, if that makes sense. So we don't get data 45 days after it's delivered and been factored. It all comes direct relationships. It all comes in, it's cleaned, processed, and then used for our rating products. And that's the same for FMIC as well on the shipper side. Okay.
No, it's good to know. All right. First article we're going to break down today is ttnews.com. Biden to devote $2.1 billion to strengthen food supply chain. The Biden administration yesterday announced $2.1 billion in new funding to bolster food supply chains, including initiatives to expand small to mid-sized processing plants, according to the USDA. A nationwide shortage of baby formula and following a shutdown of a single Abbott Labs production facility, empty grocery shelves during the early phases of COVID pandemic, and soaring food prices over the last year. Grocery prices in April were up 10.8% from a year earlier, and all the way back from when Jimmy Carter was in the White House. So what's your initial feedback on that? It's like, $2.1 billion into the supply chain. Like, where are you? Like, what's your perspective on where the real issue? I mean, I was kind of shocked when I found out one facility shutting down caused this ripple of the baby formula shortage. It's almost like there's not the whole story out there, in my opinion.
I'm going to channel and paraphrase Ronald Reagan and say one of the most terrifying phrases is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Yeah, absolutely.
I think broadly speaking, the best that we can hope for is that the people advising on these issues are knowledgeable of where the money is best spent. We had Ann Reinke at our customer event a couple of weeks ago, and her perspective was just
great.
excellent on some of this stuff. Oh yeah, terrific, absolutely terrific,
Phenomenal.
And this sense of like how the sausage is actually made in Washington, especially as it pertains to something a little bit more obtuse, as it, trucking isn't something. It's not like a defense spending or the FDA or like it's definitely like that second or third cut of government apparatus. So I just, like I said, I hope it's going to ways that will benefit the actual industry and not end up as pork.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Is just as much as I do with the statement from Ronald Reagan. Like, it's because again, it's like it's $600 million in assistance for independently owned supply chain infrastructure. Again, it's like when you read it and you don't take the surface level of it, like, yeah, that's a lot of money going into it, but like that's like 2 years away from actually seeing meaningful difference, because infrastructure means repairs, it means upgrades. It's not like it's here's 600 million, now everything's going to be running smoothly. So again, it's like I like to see the initiative to pump into small and mid-sized companies. It's great to see that that's not the top down. Well, I don't know, I went to public school, Ken, so I know 2.1 billion, and adding up the numbers that are listed, we're about 800 million short with the listed numbers. So I don't know where that's all going, but yeah, man, I think that at the end of the day, we need to, like, I think like, you got to look at it like this. The last 2 years were an absolute atrocity of events that happened, but the supply chain did prove resilient. All right. Like, yes, there were limited stuff that's out there. And I know, like, it's tough when you're, emotionally thinking, like, if that's your baby who's hungry right now, I completely understand that. Just like if it's your family that goes to the store and there's items that aren't on the shelves, but there are other items to purchase. I'm not saying that this isn't an issue. This is a fucking big issue, but it's moving right now. But what we need to look at is, why does one facility shutting down cause this big of a shortage? Why is there that much reliance on there? Why were we not prepared in the event that this happened?
I don't know if you're familiar with this philosophy around like Six Sigma events don't happen as infrequently as like the name suggests, right? Why are we having once every 100-year storms every 5 years?
Because apparently they happen every year. Yeah.
You build supply chains around events that happen, your models tell you, extraordinarily infrequently. And then when it happens, I think the formula thing was a bit of a gaffe. I think I was reading this morning, the administration is sort of walking back. This is a bit of we didn't quite understand the impact either, right? Like, we're as surprised as you that it had this big of an impact. So, again, should the lion's share of these different types of specialized formula come out of one manufacturing facility? Probably not. How much does it cost to build how much is it going to cost Abbott to build a contingent facility somewhere else? Probably more than $600 million.
Yeah.
So, where this money goes, the food pantry issue is a big deal. That's for certain. I think you see that as demographics have shifted, if people have moved in, out, and now back into cities, you've seen these pockets where it really is difficult. But to me, it's like, I don't know how this addresses inflation, because if I'm looking at the article, they mentioned that grocery store prices are up 10.8%. But
correct, it doesn't
have a lot more to do with Jerome Powell's money printer than just about anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It literally does nothing for inflation, which is, we all know. I don't need to go off.
We're two Big Ten. We're two Big Ten grads. What do we really know?
I'm not a Big Ten. I'm a fan of the Badgers. I didn't graduate from the Big Ten. I'm not going to sit here and claim that. I'm just a guy who knows a lot of what not to do in freight, man. And where I'm from, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a fucking duck. So I'm seeing some smoke and mirror that's out there. But again, that's ttnews.com. I think we're just going to skip to the last article here. We'll kind of pass over the acquisition, because I want to be more market focused here, because I think a lot of the users, or a lot of my listeners that are out there, they want to hear from you guys, and like, because we're talking about the last one was from your guys' blog, and it was how shippers use freight insights to analyze and segment carriers. Because I think like right now, like kind of to piggyback off of what we were talking about earlier about getting those direct conversations going with shippers and everything else. About from a performance standpoint, it goes on and talks about from year to year, incumbent carriers move between 60 and 80% of shippers' freight. The remaining 20 to 40% are moved by new carriers that shippers add through the RFP or spot market. When contract loads fall through the routing guide, shippers prefer to stick with incumbents even if their rates are not the lowest. If a carrier has a great track record of tender acceptance and service levels, that they should submit their contracts based on firsthand knowledge and experience. And so it's like when you're out there talking to shippers, I know the conversations that I have, and they're like, that statement is very accurate. In time, Ken, price becomes secondary with a lot of these shippers because it costs them more money to source a new carrier or broker to come and find capacity for a load. And then there's also that trust, that familiarity that's out there and working with you. So that's where it takes time, but nobody wants to invest the time it takes to get to that level. They just want that I want more money right now mentality, which again, I think we all love to make more money. But the reality is these conversations that are being had in this article that's like years in the making to get to that point. Just because you get set up with the shipper doesn't mean that you just get all of their highest paying freight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thrust of that article and post was more around from a shipper's perspective with kind of like the dual applicability to a carrier. I think shippers this last 2 years have taught them. So, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, and you probably know personally, a lot of logistics managers, directors, VPs at shippers got fired in 2018, right? Yeah. Because things went haywire. People were restating earnings or adjusting earnings guidance. Shippers were based on transportation costs. And it was because they didn't protect price or service, right? Yeah. One will get you yelled at, both will get you fired. So I think rolling into this crisis, a lot of these folks have really chosen to protect service and sort of let the price flow with the market. And it's getting, the horse is getting pretty well beaten at this point. But, dynamic bids are continuing to be kind of haute couture in the bid world, basically. And that's what's honestly, so this is the double-edged sword, which I think is an interesting piece in this article and how we're thinking about it. More frequent bidding leads to faster movement within contract rates. Contract rates move slower for a lot of different reasons than spot rates, but one of them is long procurement cycles. Yeah. But if shippers, let's just say every single shipper switched to a 1-month bid, I mean, shippers at that point would essentially be a 30-day weighted moving average of spot prices, right? So you'd see a lot more volatility and a lot more flex in the contract rate. So I do think there is a little bit of exposure on the carrier side as the spot market, corrects back as we would expect in a typical cycle, to those rates to not be as high for as long as you would typically expect. I mean, let's just say that you're on 3, 6, 9-month contracts as opposed to 12-month. That's giving the shipper another bite at the apple to bring rates down a bit. But again, contract rates very rarely fall to the extent that spot rates do. So they'll essentially dip and then be back on the way up after the spot market recycles. That's literally exactly what happens, Ken. Again, I know I've only moved like 2 truckloads in my career, but just based off of those 2 truckloads that I've moved, just 2. And it goes on to say in here, shippers want to avoid spot market exposure. Everybody knows how volatile the spot market is. Like to my point earlier, shippers know how volatile it is. Yes, are they going to test the water in it? Of course they're going to test the water. But to Ken's point, what he's talking about right there is there going to be a dip in contract? Yeah, it is, but it's not going to be if the spot market is at $2 a mile and their current contract is at like say $3.50. And again, I'm from public school education, easy math purposes here. They're going to probably push it down closer to $3 a mile, but not underneath it because they still need trucks to show up. That's the big thing that's not talked about in the media right now. Is it's like, oh, they're going to come back and they're going to rebid. A rebid will happen. Yes, that is a fact. Will it be a fucking 90% drop? No, that will not happen. No shipper, to the best of my knowledge, and all of the ones that I speak with are looking to completely fucking torpedo their current network that would eventually have a massive effect on their business. Will there be a rebalance of sorts? Of course there's going to be a rebalance of sorts, but it is not going to be a fucking 80% drop. Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we need our bloodbath, right? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I need to see my, no, it's just a joke. I mean, at the end of the day, the market behaves. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Chris Pickett. You know, he was a Coyote, if you're not familiar. He popularized the Coyote curve. I think it's the Pickett line now. But just this sense of, and there's not, I mean, if you even asked him, I don't want to put words in his mouth, there's nothing superlatively special about that curve. It's not like backed by the finest calculus that MIT could generate. It's just showing everyone in the market that there's this cyclicality that you can come to expect. And all the different, you know, stupid throwaway cliches. History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. Well, yeah, of course it does, right? We have the intra-year seasonality. We have these long cycles. And you and I could probably sit here and talk for hours, right? You still can't get Class 8 trucks.
Yep.
To the extent that you could in 2018. That's probably going to protect the market a bit from itself. That's what really just absolutely the market crapped the bed in the end of 2018 because there were so many trucks.
Yeah.
Money was free. Trucks were abundantly available. So, yeah, I mean, things are going to rebalance. Things are going to correct. But what about all these driver pay increases that all the asset fleets have given over the last 2 years? You don't claw those back by and large.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of trucking companies out there who will swoop up those drivers in a heartbeat if you try and reduce a driver's pay, you know?
Exactly. So there's a lot of science, I think, and I think you do a good job of kind of bringing it to the forefront. That 3 to 350 versus 350 all the way down to 2, there's a lot of market forces that are there, right? It's not just perception and psychology. It's driver pay increases. It's lack of Class 8 truck capacity. It's the long-term rate outlook, right? Because they're going to be a 6 to 12 month contract is going to be nipping on the end of when the spot market turns back up, as predicted, late this year, early next year. So there's a lot of science. I mean, shippers aren't stupid. They have a pretty good idea where the market's going to go.
Absolutely.
And they want to protect service.
Yeah, I think that with what I think what's protecting contract and which will hold it in, my guess, if anything, Ken, the rebid season will start after the 4th of July. They're not going to want to get that holiday freight messed with between Memorial Day and the 4th. If anything, you'll see it then. But again, I feel like the after effects of the West Coast freight and the influx coming in from Shanghai of all of the ships, I think that's that volatility, because that's another major ripple that could have an effect on the overall market, that shippers might be like, hey, I'm going to continue paying me because I need that capacity. We can't drop our prices too much and have all the trucks fucking leave the market and essentially wait on the West Coast, because there's going to be an influx of freight and it's going to be that open season again.
I mean, since you and I talked last, I found like a great deal of solace. It was great. I'm sure I saw you at TIA. I was unfortunately unable to make it, but getting back and like meeting with people for the first time in 1,000 days has been cathartic in a way of, because what really hit me is I get frothed up with some of these inflammatory things, but where I really came to after talking with like heavy hitters in our industry, no one pays attention to that. I mean, really, if anything, it's like a fly on the back of an elephant, because they get mad when their big shippers call them and say, hey, I hear there's a freight recession. Give me a price decrease. And they're like, pound sand. There's no, like, why would I give you a price decrease right now? Yeah. I'm paying all-time record highs for fuel. I don't care that I have a fuel surcharge. I don't make fuel surcharge on my empties. Yeah. And I may not be running the peg and the mile per gallon that my fuel surcharge pays out. So why would I, as a big fleet, why would I be incentivized to give a large carrier, a large shipper, a contract rate decrease right now? Yeah. No, absolutely. They might still do it, but why would they be incentivized? Why would they be willing? Why would they jump at the bit to give that decrease right now?
You'll see brokers do it more than, brokers who are more reliant on spot market freight, you'll see them do it with their contracted business before you'll ever see an asset provider go in and do it. Let's see. Andrew,
keep in mind, let's just level set, right? Yeah. Those asset carriers are still hauling the absolute lion's share of the freight.
Absolutely. 100%. And that's where it kind of starts and stops with it, in my opinion, is there's just so many different variables. And that's what I don't want anybody to lose sight of. This is not cut and dry. All right. This is not a one size fits all approach to every freight market because it's a reefer trailer or a dry van trailer or a flatbed. All right. This is not the way it operates in every single market, because again, it's like, I've had customers of mine who are running a flash sale. All right, guess what? They're paying fucking premium to get their freight out. They don't give a shit that the spot market's $2 a mile. They will pay whatever it takes to make sure their freight is on, their product is on their customer shelves. Again, and that's what you're going to see, holiday season. That's why this stuff is going to hold firm, because nobody makes money when freight sits. All right. Let's see. Andrew Teal, rebid starting July 15th. Have a better idea what summer looks like. Set up for Thanksgiving with a short leash for those carriers that can't perform if the market remains similar to what it is today. No, absolutely. Matt Laird says gasoline prices are spiking, and once the Prius it's $100 to fill up, they'll adjust the oil prices. Oh, that's funny.
I do think there's something like my current view of the market, Prius aside. I drive two. My wife just got a new Wagoneer, so we probably have two trucks in the house now. I do think we'll see a build to the 4th of July. We've all got to keep in mind, take the sensationalism, take your hat off for a minute. It gets slow between the 4th and back to school.
Yes.
I've been in the industry for 10 years. Regardless of where the market was in the macro cycle, those are slower periods. Just like February and early March are slow seasons as well. It's not slow if you're a dray operator or you're an ocean operator or a near shore. That's going to be busy. All the stuff's going to be coming across. Things are going to be situated. So my guess is that that's pretty correct. We'll see some wound licking happen after the 4th of July.
Yep.
But I expect this fall, I think if you talk to most shippers, they're still anticipating inventory issues and SKU mismatches and all this kind of stuff where, I don't know that it's going to be, people waiting around to move freight this fall. I think it's going to be pretty busy. Will it be as busy as last year or the year before? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean that it's not busy. No,
absolutely. I agree, man. There's so many different things that could happen right now. Again, what we can't lose sight of the fact is freight is going to keep moving. Again, if you're a small carrier out there right now, let's get our budgets dialed in. Let's find out. Maybe let's hone in. Let's create that segment of the industry that we're going to run, our niche market that we're going to operate in. Let's use tools that are out there to show where's the best fuel prices in that route. And again, let's take that saved capital. Let's pay off our debts. Let's throw that money at our debts right now to get that truck payment down, to get that trailer payment down, to keep moving. Because that's what it's all about, you guys. Education to keep the 97% of this industry in business. All right. At the end of the day, I'm here to help in any way I possibly can. I know Ken is. Ken's a big fan of you guys as well. So, check those guys out. Ken, how can anybody find you or find out anything more about what you guys are doing?
I'm on LinkedIn, right? I love interacting. It's amazing the amount of carriers that have taken to social media and I've gotten to interact with. We also get a ton of traffic from carriers and brokers and shippers to askiq@dat.com. Essentially, my entire analyst team, we have a department of 35 and growing, monitors that inbox and responds back with insight and answer questions. Anything from, hey, I'm a flatbed operator in Schenectady, New York, and where's the best place to go to get freight, down to where's the market headed over the next 24 months. So those are probably the best two ways. Dean Croak, principal analyst on my team, is the best freight analyst in the industry. He writes our weekly market update, and we do our show every Tuesday morning at 10 Eastern on our YouTube and LinkedIn channons.
No, absolutely. I got to get Dean on here, man. I was talking to him a while ago.
You should. That guy.
I know.
I've seen,
I can't put it this way. I literally felt like I should have had a coloring book out, listening to him talk. I was like, I'm just going to color this picture. The barn is red.
So I'm sitting on stage at this customer event we were at, again, with 50 of the largest executives and CEOs from the 50 of the largest brokerages in the United States. And I'm sitting next to Chris Kaplis, who's a PhD and heads up the entire Center for Transportation and Logistics at MIT. And over here, I have Dean Croak, who's, again, got 1 million miles behind the wheels, run a trucking company. He's done sleep studies he's worked in telematics. And it was just people would ask questions expecting hey, I'll follow up with you on that. And he just had his little speaking notes right there and just rattling off trucker profitability, where it was, where it's going, breaking down the entire P&L for a trucker line by line of how much they're paying for this and that. And it's just holy cow. It's 2/3 of the freight Mount, half of freight Mount Rushmore sitting up here, sitting next to Dean and Chris.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Ken will be back on, you guys. I hope you know that. He's not going to
for
this
sure.
isn't a solo shot here. But hey, that's it for today. You guys, the audio only replay will be available on the podcast Coffee with the Freight Coach later on today. There'll be a new episode on that drop tomorrow as well, long form interview. The video replay will be available on my YouTube channel here. Almost immediately after the show, I'll put the links for the articles that we broke down today in there as well. I appreciate you guys all so much. And again, share the show. That's all I can ask from you guys. Please share the show. If you see value in it, people in your network are going to see value in it as well. I appreciate you guys all so much.